Every time she moved, the mime copied her exactly, but when she stood still, he kept moving. After getting a scholarship in the city, she finally found a small apartment she could afford. It wasn't perfect, the building was old, the walls creaked sometimes, and the paint peeled near the corners, but it had charm. Her favorite part was the big front window that looked out onto a quiet, empty street. Sunlight poured in during the day, and at night, the street lamp outside gave everything a soft, yellow glow. She felt lucky to have found it. On her first night, after setting up her bed and putting her books on the shelves, Anya made herself a cup of tea and sat near the window. The street was calm. No cars passed, no voices, just silence. It felt peaceful at first. She scrolled through her phone, enjoying the stillness, until she heard a soft tapping sound. Tap, tap. She looked up quickly. The window was shut. She stood and pulled the curtain to one side. Nothing. The street was still empty, bathed in the orange glow of the streetlight. She waited for a moment, then shrugged and sat back down. Maybe it was just the wind or a tree branch brushing the glass dot. As the night went on, the room got colder. Anya wrapped herself in a blanket and got into bed. Around midnight, she turned off the lights and closed her eyes. But just as she started drifting into sleep, she heard the sound again. Tap, tap, tap. This time, it was louder, slower. She sat up, now fully awake. Her heart began to race. She stared at the window across the room. The curtain was still closed. The tapping continued, steady and patient, like someone knocking with one finger. Slowly, she walked over and took a deep breath. She opened the curtain. Nothing. Again. The street was empty. Not a soul in sight. No footsteps, no breeze. Just the still night and the buzzing streetlight. She looked carefully. Maybe someone was hiding behind the tree or near the building wall. But there was no movement, no shadows. She stood there a moment longer, trying to shake off the uneasiness. Maybe the old window was just settling, or maybe she was just tired from the long day. She locked the window latch tightly and stepped away. Before returning to bed, she gave the room one more glance. Everything looked normal, but deep down, something felt off. It wasn't just the sound, it was the feeling that someone had been watching her. She shook her head, laughed softly at herself, and got under the blanket again. But as she closed her eyes and tried to sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere out there, just beyond her window, someone or something had been standing completely still. Watching. The next morning, Anya woke up feeling slightly unsettled. She told herself it was nothing, just first night anxiety in a new place. As sunlight filled the apartment, her fear from the night before began to feel silly. After getting ready, she stood in the bathroom brushing her teeth. That's when something strange happened. In the mirror, for a brief second, she saw someone standing behind her. A man, pale face, black clothes, a white painted smile that stretched to wide. She gasped and turned round. Instantly nothing was there. The bathroom was empty. She looked back at the mirror. It was normal again. Her heart pounded in her chest. She stood frozen for a moment, staring at her own reflection. Was she imagining things? She hadn't slept well. Maybe she was just tired. She tried to brush it off, but the image stayed in her mind all day. A man with a painted white face. A mime. It felt like it meant something, but she couldn't explain it. That evening, Anya closed all the windows. Before sunset, she double-checked the locks and kept the curtains drawn. Just as she was about to make dinner, she heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. Her whole body froze. She didn't want to look, but she had to. Slowly, she walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. Her blood ran cold. Across the street, directly under the street lamp, stood a man dressed like a mime. He wore black suspenders, a white shirt, black gloves, and heavy white face paint. He didn't move. His arms hung by his sides. His eyes were fixed on her. She stepped back in shock. She had never seen him before. Who was he? Why was he standing there, just staring? She peeked again. He hadn't moved an inch. Anya raised her hand slowly, unsure why. The mime copied her. She blinked. He blinked. She tilted her head. He did the same. Her hands began to tremble. Her skin crawled with fear. It wasn't just that he was copying her, it was how perfectly he did it, like a reflection that wasn't in a mirror. She quickly shut the curtain and backed away. Her heart raced. She wanted to call someone, but what would she even say? There's a mime copying me outside. She checked her door again, locked it twice, and turned off the lights. For the next hour, she sat in silence, listening for any sound. Nothing. Finally, she dared to look out the window once more. The mime was gone. The street was empty again. But now, that didn't bring comfort. It made her feel worse. Where had he gone? Was he still nearby? She closed the curtain slowly and whispered to herself, "It's just someone playing a joke." But deep down, she knew this wasn't a prank. This felt like something else, something real, something evil. And somehow, she had just become part of it. Anya couldn't sleep. Her thoughts kept returning to the mime. Who was he? Why was he copying her? And how did he disappear so silently? She sat on her bed, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the curtain covering the window. Hours passed, and the room grew colder. Finally, driven by fear mixed with curiosity, she stood up and moved to the window. With a deep breath, she slowly pulled the curtain aside. Her stomach dropped. The mime was back standing in the exact same spot under the street lamp, still and lifeless, staring directly at her window. Anya froze. Then, as a test, she raised her left hand. The mime raised his left hand too. She nodded slowly. He nodded. She smiled nervously. The mime smiled wider, his painted mouth stretching into something unnatural. Then she did something different. She stopped moving. She just stood there, arms by her side, still as stone. But the mime didn't stop. He began to move one step forward, then another, and another, slowly walking toward her building. Anya's breath caught in her throat. She dropped the curtain and stumbled backward, heart hammering in her chest. The silence outside felt louder now, like the world was holding its breath. She ran to her door and made sure the lock was tight. Then she pushed the table in front of it. Her phone buzzed. A message. No name, no number, just a black screen and white text. "Don't stop moving." Her hands shook as she read it again and again. Suddenly, the lights flickered and the room dimmed. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a call. The name said unknown. She hesitated, then answered. At first, silence. Then a voice, low and whispering, said, "If you stop moving, he comes in." She dropped the phone in panic. Her chest tightened. Was this some kind of sick game? Who was behind this? She didn't understand. But something deep inside her told her it was real. Very real. Her instincts screamed at her to move. So she started pacing the room back and forth, around the bed, to the kitchen and back. Her legs felt heavy, her arms numb, but she didn't stop. Every time she paused, even for a second, she felt a coldness pressing against the windows and door. She thought she heard footsteps in the hallway, slow, heavy, coming closer. She glanced at the door. The handle twitched. Her breathing quickened. She kept moving. Faster, her foot knocked over a chair. She didn't care. Then came another sound, soft tapping on the glass behind her. She couldn't look. She didn't want to, but she had to. Slowly, she turned toward the window, her body still moving slightly. The curtain moved just a little, even though no wind blew. The tapping stopped. A shadow passed by the glass. He was closer, much closer. And Anya realized something terrifying. This mime didn't just copy her. He was connected to her. One second the room was dimly lit. The next it was drowned in darkness. The sudden silence was heavy. The only sound Anya could hear was her own breathing, shaky and uneven. Her phone's flashlight became her only source of light. She moved it slowly across the room, every corner feeling darker than it should be. Her body was aching from all the pacing, but she didn't dare stop. The voice on the phone still echoed in her mind. "If you stop moving, he comes in." She circled the bed, then the couch, again and again. Her legs felt like they would collapse. Then she heard a new sound. Her apartment door creaked, not fully open, just slightly, enough to make her heart nearly stop. She hadn't heard footsteps, hadn't heard the lock turn, yet the door had moved. She stood still in fear, but the moment she froze, she heard soft steps behind her. That was enough. She turned and kept walking, even though her vision was blurry with panic. The door opened wider on its own. From the darkness of the hallway, the mime entered slow, silent, and smiling. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. His eyes never left her. He began copying her again, perfectly. When she walked left, he followed. When she turned her head, he did the same. But his movements became sharper, more unnatural. Like he wasn't copying her anymore. He was controlling her. Her hands rose without her meaning to. Her legs turned, though her mind screamed to run the other way. She looked down at her limbs, moving on their own. It was like invisible strings were pulling her. The mime tilted his head and took another step closer, now just feet away. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Her voice was gone. Her lips moved, but nothing came. It was as if her voice had been stolen. She backed up into the wall, her phone falling from her hand and shattering. On the floor, total darkness returned, except for the glow of the streetlight outside. The mime now stood in front of her, almost touching her. He slowly lifted his hand and touched his lips, as if telling her to be quiet. Then he pointed to the mirror across the room. In the reflection, Anya could see both of them, but the mime behind her wasn't in the room, only in the glass. And in the mirror, he moved first, and she followed, not the other way around. Her reflection wasn't hers anymore. She tried to break free from the invisible grip controlling her, but it was useless. Her body was no longer her own. She was being turned into something else, something silent, something trapped. The mime smiled one last time, and everything around her faded into stillness. The game wasn't about copying, it was about replacing. Everything felt cold. Anya stood frozen in the middle of the room, her chest rising and falling fast, but she couldn't move the way she wanted anymore. It was as if her body was no longer fully hers. The mime stepped back slowly, but in the mirror, he stayed close, his reflection now completely in control. Anya watched in horror as her mirrored self began to move without her. It raised its arms, tilted its head, smiled with a blank, lifeless face. The real Anya stood still, helpless, her breathing now shallow. Then something pulled her toward the mirror, as if an invisible force had wrapped itself around her body. The cracked glass began to ripple like water. The reflection wasn't just copying her, it was calling her. She screamed silently, her voice still gone, as her feet slid across the floor against her will. Her hands clawed at the wall, the table, anything, but nothing could stop it. The mime's painted face in the mirror grinned wider, its teeth impossibly white, its eyes empty. Her body hit the mirror with a force she couldn't control, and instead of bouncing back, she passed through. In one horrifying second, she was pulled inside into the reflection and disappeared. The room fell silent. The lights flickered once, then came back on. The mirror stopped moving. It was just glass again. The door slowly creaked shut on its own, and the wind outside finally began to blow. The next morning, the landlord knocked on Enya's door. No answer. He used his spare key to open it. The apartment was empty. Everything was clean and untouched, except for the shattered phone on the floor and the mirror with a single long crack down the center. There was no sign of struggle, no broken window, no trace of anyone leaving, just silence. The police were called, but no clues were found. It was like she vanished into thin air. Days passed, then weeks. Enya's name became just another unsolved case. But at night, strange things began to happen. Residents in the opposite building started seeing someone standing at Enya's window. A figure in white face paint, still as a statue. It never moved, while you watched. But if you looked away, even for a second, it seemed a little closer the next time you looked back. Some said it copied your movements. Others claimed they saw their own reflection act differently when they passed by the building. But no one dared go inside. A month later, the apartment was listed for rent again. No one applied. Now they say, if you stand in front of the building and raise your hand, the figure in the window will do the same. But don't try to test it. Don't play the silent game. And whatever you do, never stop moving, because the mime is still there, and now he's looking for someone new to copy.